Hey folks, good Saturday evening to you. Hope you're having a good day so far. Meteorologist Tyler Eliasen here in the Fox 13 Weather Center with the very latest on Hurricane Dorian. Obviously a major storm, and this is not going to be a good situation for folks in the northwestern Bahamas. Over the next 24 hours, conditions going downhill very quickly. I mean, look at the representation here on satellite. This is a textbook major hurricane approaching Category 5 intensity. Likely late tonight or early tomorrow morning. Whether or not it gets there really doesn't mean much at this point. This is a major storm, and unfortunately folks in the northwestern Bahamas, especially say kind of near Great Abaco Island, which is right about here, and then Grand Bahama, which is over here on the left, they're going to experience some of the worst conditions that can really be experienced from a storm anywhere on our planet. So this is not a good situation for them, with winds upwards of 150, and not only that, but gusts up to 185 miles an hour. Wave height's already way up on this, up around 20 to 30 feet closer to the center. Already experiencing some pretty good wave action over on the eastern side of some of those islands this evening. There you see it, pressure down to 941 right now. The location of this is about 150 miles east of the northwestern Bahamas and about 330 miles due east of West Palm Beach, Florida. Hurricane force winds only extend out about 30 miles from the center right now, so it's a fairly small, compact storm. Tropical storm force winds extend out about 105 miles, so you kind of do the math there, and I would expect tropical storm force winds to be reaching parts of the northwestern Bahamas likely in the next, say, 8 to 10 hours or so. Probably about tomorrow morning, they'll be feeling some wind already, and it's only going to get worse from there. Good news on the track for Florida, as we've seen that shift in the last 24 hours, the shift to the east, and there is very good model consensus on that right now. That is to say that folks along the west coast of Florida probably not going to have much to deal with this storm. That's just kind of where we're at right now. We feel very confident that along the west coast of Florida, very little, if any, impacts at all, especially if this storm goes right down the middle of that cone, which is easily 100 miles off the east coast of Florida. Folks along the east coast, especially from the Space Coast northward up through Jacksonville, still need to watch and keep a very close eye on this because, again, the margin of error here is very slim. I mean, you're talking, again, 100 miles off the coast. Any subtle shift to the west, I mean, a storm 10 miles offshore versus 100 miles offshore makes a big difference in the impacts that we're going to see here along the coast. With this track, kind of right down the middle of the cone here, about 100 miles offshore, that would mean probably some tropical storm force wind gusts, periods of heavy rain in some of the bands, and likely some higher than normal water levels and minimal surge along the coast as well. What's interesting here, though, is that with this turn to the north, folks in the Carolinas will have to watch this very closely throughout the week. Again, it's a slow-moving storm, potentially some impacts along the coast of South Carolina, North Carolina, maybe even along the coast of Georgia, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday before eventually we can just get rid of this thing and push it out to sea. So still a ways to go, but again, signs are promising here for the state of Florida. This is the latest model ensembles from the European model. This is basically 51 different runs of the same model with kind of slightly tweaked variables. And what you see here is a pretty good cluster offshore. That's what we want to see, a good consensus and consistency. The last few runs of the European have showed pretty much this same picture. That is good consistency, and that's what we want to see. The GFS ensemble is kind of the same thing that we're looking at here, but this is about 30 different runs, or a little over 20 different runs. These are a little bit closer to shore. The clustering is a little bit closer to shore. Again, it's still possible that this gets very near the coast, if not makes landfall along the coast. It's not a huge probability at this point, but it's still possible. So folks along the east coast of Florida will need to keep an eye on this very closely, again, until it gets north of your latitude. So Tampa, for instance, is about 28 degrees north. Ignore that arrow, it's just a line. Once it gets north of that line, we'll feel very confident, of course, that we're not going to have any issues here along the west coast. But once it passes every single latitude as it goes up through the state and stays offshore, then we're more and more confident. So as the storm is, say, kind of down here, coming out of the Bahamas, folks along the east coast need to watch, but as it progresses north, we'll be able to knock off some of those towns and feel more and more confident. Again, folks up in the Carolinas watching this one throughout the week, we'll keep you updated here at myfoxhurricane.com.